What of baby boy Hunter? Uh, Trying to get clarification on what the White House's position is, the big guy's position, effectively, in terms of his involvement with his baby boy Hunter. Phil Wegman over at RealClearPolitics.com tried again yesterday with Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokeswoman, and this is how that went.
The president has previously said that he has never discussed overseas business dealings with his son, but the White House now says that the president has never been in business with his son. So why the updated language? Which statement is true? Or is this semantics and they're both true?
As I stated on Monday, when I was asked this question multiple times, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on this. Nothing has changed on this. And so could ask me a million different ways on this question. Nothing has changed.
How about just one way? Has he never spoken with and or done business with? Is it one? Is it both? Is it neither?
I mean, we have a text message, from Hunter saying, quote, "I'm sitting here with my father and we, capitals, would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled."
Yeah, that's the text, the WhatsApp message
some
to
of
the
this stuff.
Chinese businessman. Among what we're
others.
expecting to hear from Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner, on Monday.
If he makes it. I mean, he can't stay at his home in Long Island. He can't stay at his home in Brooklyn because of the threats that they're getting. So they're in hiding right now.
This denial has been going on for quite some time, actually, it turns out. Julie Kelly over at amgreatness.com, reminded us of the exchange between Jay Carney. That's going back to 2014. Exchange between Jay Carney when he was the White House spokeshuman about Hunter Biden, May 13th of 2014. Hunter Biden has now taken a position with the largest oil and gas company, holding company in Ukraine. Is there any concern about the appearance of a conflict there? Jay Carney, I would refer you to the vice president's office. Hunter Biden and other members of the Biden family are obviously private citizens. Where they work does not reflect an endorsement by the administration or by the vice president or president, but I would refer you to the vice president's office. And that was the standard talking point back in 2014 at the end of Joe Obama term 2. What about Joe Obama term 3? Remember, Jen Psaki was at the State Department with Marie Harf. They were the Cagney and Lacey of the State Department.
Yeah, you love those two.
Oh, yeah. And then Psaki graduated to being White House spokeswoman for a time there in the beginning of the Biden administration, right?
Yeah.
You remember. She was asked about it, too. Matt Lee, AP reporter, covers national security issues. He asked her about it not so long ago. So you go back, Jay Carney, 2014, asked about it. Refer you to the vice president's office. We don't endorse, not endorse. It's just a private citizen. Nothing to see here. Mike Lee, querying Jen Psaki about it. That's how this went.
I'm wondering if the State Department has any concerns or any thoughts about the vice president's son joining the board of directors of this Ukrainian gas company. Does, in particular, I understand why the White House would refer this to the vice president's office, but does this building diplomatically have any concerns about potential perceptions of conflict or / cronyism, which is what you've often accused the Russians of doing?
No, he's a private citizen.
Okay, but then do you consider that the Russian oligarchs who control, or the Ukrainian oligarchs who control these, they're all private citizens as well?
We certainly wouldn't put them in the same.
No, I'm not
category
suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that it should be in the same category. But I'm wondering if there are concerns from this building about the perception about how the Russians and or the Ukrainians would perceive the involvement of a son of the Vice President of the United States in this, especially given the situation.
No, there are not.
No
concerns. That was almost a decade ago. White House spokeswoman Jay Carney, State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki, who went on to be Biden White House spokesman, as you know.
Wow.
So this has been, covering up for Hunter for at least the last decade. Actually, we know it goes back longer than that. We talked about it earlier in this week. New York Times reporting Obama in 2008, fall of 2008, before Obama's elected. We don't have any concerns about Joe Biden's son Hunter getting money from big banks that were
We don't know what he did.
lobbying for change in the consumer bankruptcy law that would benefit them. Joe Biden was working in advance of that change. Hunter Biden gets hired by those big banks. That goes back to 2001.
Well, don't forget what Hunter Biden texted to his daughter in 2019, quote, "I hope you can all do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half of your salary." So maybe it wasn't 10%, maybe it's 50%.
Well, half in total, 10% on sweetheart deals like a Chinese energy concern.
Yeah, he's been doing it for 30 years. He says it's exhausting job.
Well, this is why, because of what we're talking about and what they've been misdirecting attention away from for so many years, this is why his plea bargain getting sidelined by the judge
such
the
a
other day
glorious
is
day.
so important. And Jonathan Turley, law professor from George Washington University, of course, explained why that plea bargain broke down. Because you had a prosecution and a defense that didn't agree on the nature of the plea bargain. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Here's Turley. One, the defense said this was a closeout plea bargain, and the prosecution, because they don't want to disclose and they don't want to have to answer questions about things like Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings and who may or may not be implicated along with him in those foreign business dealings. They just keep it an open-ended investigation. We're not done here, so we can say it's a pending investigation. We don't have to answer questions, which is why they couldn't say in court that it was a closeout plea agreement. And the judge smelled a rat.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is they really did want to cap out the case. The Department of Justice wanted to cap this investigation, but they didn't want to say that it was now over. From the very beginning, the Hunter Biden team said that this is a closeout plea agreement, that there'd be nothing left to investigate. But the Department of Justice is telling Congress, we're not going to give you these witnesses or these documents because there's an ongoing investigation. You can't do both things when a judge is asking you to specifically address whether this is a closeout or a continuing investigation.
So that's one key point. And the other key point, which Jonathan Turley nicely summarized, the question the judge asked. The question the judge asked that may mandate House Republicans move an impeachment proceeding against the big guy.
The judge just raised the one charge that the White House most fears, which is the chance that Hunter was a foreign agent. And if he was a foreign agent, the question is foreign agent for who and for what purpose? The president was that purpose. If you're influence peddling, it's influence over the president. So if you go for FARA, it's going to bring all of this stuff in, including some of these tax counts from 2014 to 2015 that the Department of Justice allowed to run, allowed the statute of limitations to expire.
Right.
All of that can get bootstrapped into a FARA issue. So the whole purpose of this deal is collapsing as we're watching it, and it's taken Washington by utter surprise. I was on the Hill talking with members.
Yeah.
And didn't he want blanket immunity for future prosecutions?
Well,
Too, wasn't it? I
of
mean,
course, it was a closeout. That was the whole point, is they wanted it to be, both sides really wanted it to be a closeout deal, but Department of Justice couldn't admit that they want this to be a closeout deal because then they couldn't say there's a pending investigation possibly implicating FARA charges. But of course, the whole point, like they slow walked the IRS investigation, and by the way, that whistleblower, self-identified gay Democrat, Joseph Ziegler, had a piece in Wall Street Journal. I came forward because, in my opinion, Hunter Biden received preferential treatment. Although some in Congress tried to explain away my concerns, what I saw during the investigation was entirely outside the norm. I've disagreed with prosecutors in the past. In some cases, I didn't get my way, but those disagreements always followed the normal investigative process. I always was allowed to follow concrete evidence and investigate a case without being handcuffed or slow walked by the Justice Department. In a Hunter Biden case, he says in detail as he testified, I wasn't. He quoting Ziegler again, I would characterize the Justice Department's behavior as obstruction. Of course it was. 5 years for a simple IRS fraud scheme. And so they were slow walking that to have the statutes run on the Burisma cash. And now, of course, they would slow walk the FARA investigation. It's an open investigation. It's a pending investigation, at least through November of 2024. And we can't talk about it. And we can't give you these documents. And we can't present these witnesses. And we can't even tell you if there's an investigation going on. We may or may not have an investigation going on, which is the new default position of the FBI, just as the new default position of the Biden White House is never did business with. It's no longer never spoke with about business. And so here's where Kevin McCarthy is at, Speaker McCarthy, saying the other day that an inquiry, they're not moving to impeachment yet. So, I know the D.C. press corps is hyperventilating, but he was careful to explain where they're at versus where they're not.
By withholding information. If they do not provide the information we need, then we would go to an impeachment inquiry. Impeachment inquiry, which simply is an investigation and providing Congress the power to do that investigation.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Congressman Jim Banks. He's a rep for Indiana's 3rd. He's also running for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in the seat that Mike Braun is vacating. Representative Banks, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you.
So does what Speaker McCarthy says, does that satisfy you in terms of the sort of step-by-step process in pursuit of the truth when it comes to all things Biden Incorporated?
Well, it's the beginning of the process. So, yes, that's how it works. The House Judiciary Committee, chaired by Jim Jordan, will begin the impeachment inquiry, or that entire process, and then we'll move forward. I'm ready to vote for impeachment. I believe this president is the most corrupt president we've ever had living in the White House. That's saying a lot after the Clintons lived there, but the evidence is mounting and piling up day by day with what this family has gotten away with for years. And now with him in the White House, the number of examples of abuses of power and the reasons that we should impeach him. The reason it's important to me is we need to make sure that no president in the future believes that they can get away with what Joe Biden got away with. That's why you impeach him. You lay down a marker that we will not stand for this. There will be accountability, and impeachment is that accountability.
But you have 18 Republicans who are elected in Democratic districts, so do you think they'd vote to impeach?
I don't know. I can't speak for them. I believe the evidence is there. The House Republican Conference is growing, I believe, in this direction, and that's why Speaker McCarthy is, he's laying out the timeline or the marker that you move forward with the House Judiciary Committee doing its job with an impeachment inquiry to start that process. And then move it forward to a vote on the floor. Obviously, I don't expect the Senate, controlled by Democrats. I guess at this point, I'm skeptical that they would impeach him.
Right.
But if the evidence there, force the United States Senate to take it up, hold the hearings, and let the American people decide for themselves. Let them hear this evidence as well. So much of it covered up by the mainstream media that they won't talk about it. But Chuck Grassley deserves an award for his tenacious pursuit of the truth, and what he released this week, the FD 1032, and what that includes, the facts about the Hunter Biden dealings in Ukraine, the money that the family received from it, the money that Joe Biden skimmed off the top of it, all in the pursuit of selling access of the son selling access to the powerful father who was in the White House at the time as Vice President to Barack Obama. We know those dealings were occurring then. We can only speculate that those dealings have been going on for a long time. But I'm very glad that Senator Grassley pursued this, released this form to the public. When the FBI threatened him, the DOJ told him not to do it. He released it anyway so that the American people can see the facts, but there's so much more of that to come.
And so there's no political queasiness on your part, clearly. Are you going to be watching and pushing people, including maybe, as not as needed, the speaker, to move forward with this process, not allow this to be slow walked because of, the some in the Republican caucus who may or may not be politically faint of heart?
Yeah, I don't think I need. I don't think I need to do any pushing. I mean, I
Okay.
think the growing spirit in the House Republican Conference is that this type of corruption can never be repeated again, and impeachment is the way to ensure that that type of accountability occurs. So I think you've already heard the beginnings of this pursuit and interest among House Republicans. It's only going to grow, especially when members go home for the August recess, which we closed up shop on the House floor yesterday. We're all back on our way back to our districts, and when you go back to Northeast Indiana, my constituents are saying, how does this president get away with it? Why aren't you holding him accountable? And
Right.
that growing sense among our constituents in our district is something that all House Republicans are going to feel when they go home.
That's not limited to Biden, I suspect, either. I'm sure they're saying, and Merrick Garland, if he was less than forthright, to be generous. And oh, by the way, on another topic, but also incredibly important. I mean, Ali Mayorkas' testimony before the House Judiciary Committee this week was comical, except the issue of First Amendment rights is not funny, the infringements of DHS and other agencies. But so, I mean, I don't want to get into an impeachment palooza here, but I mean, Merrick Garland, Ali Mayorkas, there are other targets when it comes to obvious bad acts, aren't there?
I think that's right. I mean, the Mayorkas hearing this week was really infuriating. I mean, it's the Congress's job to provide oversight, and when that oversight is blocked by the administration, in this case, Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Mayorkas, who has completely skirted the law, at the border, the way they've opened the border wide open, the travesty that comes with that, flooding our country with fentanyl, leading cause of death of Americans my age, of working age who are eligible to serve in our military, obviously a national security concern, and they just completely the department, the secretary completely blocks that type of oversight from the House. I mean, he does deserve to be impeached. I mean, I understand your sentiment, but about impeachment palooza, but when it comes to these guys, there has to be some kind of accountability, and at the end of the day, that's it. That's the power that the House has to provide that type of accountability to those who abuse their power.
Well, he lied under oath and said that.
It's running wild.
Sorry, Congressman, but he lied under oath and said that the border was secure. And clearly, obviously, if anybody has half a brain,
Well,
they
it's an
can see what's
opinion.
going on.
Yeah.
Well, 1,700 people have died so far this year trying to get into this country. So what is it going to take? Is the Biden administration, is there going to be any movement at all to secure the border?
Not on their part. I mean, they're bragging about. I mean, as you just said. I mean, they're bragging about securing the border when that's obviously false. They're lying about the numbers. They're using funny math to try to make claims that the border is secure when we know that is absolutely 100% false. So to get back to that point, at Northeast Indiana, as I travel around the state of Indiana running for the United States Senate, Republicans are sick and tired of the talk, and they're begging for us to follow through and provide the type of oversight and accountability that we promised when we asked for them to give us back the House Republican majority, which they did. So we have to move forward with these investigations, and if those investigations are blocked by the Biden administration, we have to impeach those who are abusing their power in doing so.
Well, and that I just want to get one more before we let you go, and that necessarily implicates the FBI. That's a bit more delicate, but it's no more delicate than the Attorney General. What about Christopher Wray and Paul Abadi and the boys over at the FBI and accountability there?
Well, I have a lot of concerns there. I mean, we've seen this going on for a long time, but never more than on the Biden administration's watch. The FBI, the DOJ becoming politicized and such a dangerous way in America to see the federal law enforcement agency and the Biden administration using it against their political enemies, and in a lot of ways going after parents showing up at school board meetings to going after the nonstop investigations and threats against President Trump and his family and using it in that way. So, yeah, absolutely. And this is where I believe, if there's ever been the right guy in the right place at the right time, it's Jim Jordan chairing the House Judiciary Committees, methodically going through this process. And yes, I wish it would happen faster, but it's not because Jim Jordan's not doing his job and providing that type of serious investigation to lay the groundwork to hold these people accountable. So stay tuned, and I think after we get back from the August recess, you're going to see a lot of this heat up.
He is Congressman Jim Banks, representative for Indiana's 3rd and Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Indiana come next year. Jim Banks, Representative Banks, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Hi, this is Randy Donnelly from Donnelly Auctions in Union, Illinois with my current want